Welcome to the Wool Museum here in Geelong. Firstly, a big thank you for everybody to arrive here today. This is certainly an interesting day for Samsung, for Deakin University, and also for SP Tech Solutions. We are here for this wonderful concept called Holly. But before we dive into that, allow me to do a few introductions, if I may. Firstly, Sarah Henderson, thank you very much for your attendance here. Federal member for Corangamite, thank you. My pronunciation is not too good, so please forgive me there. Representing the Department of Health and Aged Care, so again, thank you for your attendance here today. Richard Miles, thank you very much for your attendance as well today. It is excellent to see such representation, to say the least. The federal member for Corio, I think I've got that pronunciation correct. Councillor Rod McDonald, again, who is instrumental in this project, to say the least. Without Councillor Rod's inspiration and mentoring, I don't think we would be here today, to say the least. So again, thank you very much for being here. We also have Mr. Cameron Broadman. Where's Cameron? Oh, Cameron, yep, indeed, who will be spending a few minutes talking with us today. Cameron obviously is instrumental in this, and without the help of Cameron and Penelope for your help as well, we would not be here also here in Geelong. So thank you again, Cameron. Trevor Day from Deakin University. Deakin University is playing an enormous part in this. In fact, it is very much a joint effort between Deakin University, Samsung Electronics and SP Tech Solutions, which gets us here today. Holly is very much the brainchild of two individuals that work for Deakin University, and those two individuals I will mention now, purely because I like to embarrass them. One is Professor Con Masakis, I think I'm pronouncing your name correctly, and Professor Raj Vasa, who is here, oh, there we are at the back. So it is these two gentlemen that we really do owe to be here, because it was on a flight coming back from the United States that the two gentlemen were thinking, how can we get to a point where our people, our mothers, our fathers, can actually live in their homes more independently? How can we allow them to lead their lives without having lots of people intervening with them, and without that dreaded thought of having to move into a residential aged care facility? So it was that thought that inspired the research and development that has led us to where we are today. So again, Con, Raj, great to have you here, and Trevor, superb again in terms of the leadership of Deakin University and driving us to the point where we now have a product that we're going to trial with. We also have Andrew Weir here today. Andrew, I believe, there we are. Thank you again for your involvement with this project. Absolutely spectacular, thank you. And then Kashil Prasad. Kashil, thank you from a Geelong perspective. Looking forward to doing lots of work with you in terms of driving this forward. And then last but certainly not least is Andre Ferretto. Where's Andre? Andre here. Without Andre, this project would not have been funded. This project is very much his project, and the company SP Tech Solutions is the company behind Holly here today. Now, very briefly, it is an innovative project, to say the least. It's an innovative project on two fronts. One, we're dealing with innovation from a company and from a corporate governance perspective, and also from a university perspective. I think we would all have heard the recent messages from Malcolm Turnbull in terms of moving towards an innovation nation. Now, a lot of universities at that point in time came out and said, yes, we talk about innovation, we train for innovation. But I think something deeper is within that message. It's not a concept of teaching education. It's not a question of how many classes you have about innovation. It's about doing innovation. Now, innovation is a tricky thing. Innovation is something that you have to live and breathe. And it's about that linkages between universities and private industries that really connects the dots between the tremendous minds that we have within the university arena, particularly within Australia, and then the ability to commercialise it to the point where we can sit here today. Samsung's involvement in this obviously is an interesting one. We see tremendous potential for Holly. The potential obviously is to help people age more gracefully in a home time situation without the pressures and the difficulties of moving into, say, a residential aged care facility as you move into older age. My mother and father, they're in their 90s now, and when I mentioned this to them, they were all for it, because they're right at the point where they really do need to have additional sorts of care. This types of technology, although originally rejected by my mother and father. I'm not sure if this resonates, but the generation that my mother and father represent don't like technology. And the last thing they ever wanted was to have technology into their home. But as soon as they realized that this was like a smoke alarm, pop it in, set it, forget it, it doesn't do anything really until something untoward happens. And it's when that untoward situation happens that Holly really kicks in. And as soon as they realized this, they thought, yes, there's something, we can do this. And I can then have the peace of mind that I could live at home in a more comfortable environment, knowing full well that the caring community surrounding them are aware that they're okay, and they're in a position to then continue on with their lives. Certainly my brother, my sister love it, and they're certainly looking forward to the day when they can install it for my mum and dad. And I certainly think that this trial will prove out and show that this is a success moving forward. Now, to that end, what I'd like to do, if I may, is to introduce the Honourable Sarah Henderson, to speak a few words. So. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be here and join with you in celebrating what is a very exciting initiative for our region. I'd like to acknowledge Richard Miles and Rod McDonald, Cameron Boardman, representing the Victorian Government, and the many representatives here from Deakin University and, of course, from Samsung, who are joining together with the city to roll out this trial. It's my great pleasure to be here on behalf of the Minister for Health, Aged Care and Sport, Susan Lee, to fully get behind this trial. We know how important it is to make sure that we do everything as a government to keep people living in their homes for as long as they possibly can. And that sense of independence and also confidence for older people to know that they can live independently with a great sense of positivity and happiness, knowing that if something does go wrong, they've got the backup that they need, is incredibly vital. As Ian pointed out, there's the cost of maintaining someone in a state-based facility or in an aged care home can run up to about $300,000 a year. So this also makes economic sense. And it also, I think, nurtures the many older people in our community who want to stay in their own homes and they want to stay part of their own community and stay connected to their own family as much as they possibly can. As you know, our government has a very strong focus on nurturing innovation in whatever way we can, whether it's through our National Innovation and Science Agenda, whether it's through our rollout of the NBN, which of course is happening across the Geelong region this year. In everything we do, we have to be a smart city and we have to be a smart country. And Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull is firmly focused on innovation as an absolute driving force across our region and across our country. And innovation doesn't just happen in software development, it doesn't just happen in high-tech applications, on apps, on the internet. It really has to underpin everything that we are doing. And a great example of that is the innovation that's taking place in advanced manufacturing. One of the great announcements that we've made recently in the Geelong region is to place an industry growth centre in advanced manufacturing here in Geelong, and that is an absolute game changer because underpinning advanced manufacturing, as distinct perhaps from traditional manufacturing, is innovation. And how wonderful it is to see innovation playing such a central role in how we care for older people in our community and how we can roll this out in our entire aged care system. So congratulations to Samsung, to Deakin and to the city for this great initiative. It involves about 5 residences at the moment, but let's hope that we can see some great success out of the trial and we can again celebrate our region as a great centre of innovation, of research and of science. And I'm very proud to be supporting this on behalf of the Turnbull Government. Thank you.
If I may, I'd like to now, well, firstly, thank you, Sarah, for your kind words. I'd like to invite Cameron to just say a few words also from the Victorian Government perspective. Cameron, please.
Good morning, and thank you very much, Ian. To Sarah Henderson, the member for Corangamite, Richard Miles, the member for Corio. Thank you very much for coming this morning and demonstrating not just the federal government support but also the opposition support, what is undoubtedly a bipartisan issue. And also to Andre Ferretto, the brain behind this initiative, who has invested so much of his time and his knowledge into creating something which addresses two of the most fundamental challenges I think we're all facing as a society. What do we do when we see a transition from traditional manufacturing into a knowledge economy combined with those challenges around an ageing population? Well, I think today, this morning, we may have found a solution to that very issue. Also to Councillor Rod McDonald and the large coterie that is here from Deakin University that have been equally instrumental in contributing to this outcome. It's an absolute delight on behalf of the Victorian Government to be here to represent particularly Minister Philip Belladakis, the Minister for Small Business Innovation and Trade, on what I think is testimony to what this city now represents, and also shows that there are very few places in the world that could bring together those vital linkages of applied research, of local participation and leadership, of private industry solving a specific social problem. And that's exactly what Holly is. And you think about where we are from a state. As I mentioned, we've had success over agriculture, we've had success over manufacturing, and now we're having great success over innovation and science-related industries. But what we need to ensure that we are even more successful is that we better understand the application of technology as it relates to some of those problems that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And aged care, of course, is one of those specific issues. So to take a private sector solution backed up with academic research, to put that into a practical situation where we can analyse, we can ascertain, and we can come up with a solution as to what is a better mode of health and service delivery, undoubtedly is something we can all be proud of. And I reiterate what the Victorian Government, both through my department and also through Regional Development Victoria, wants to do, is we want to see this as a solution that can be a blueprint across the state, across the nation, and hopefully get to a stage where we can export this product internationally. So congratulations to Deakin, to the City of Greater Geelong, and particularly to Samsung for bringing those vital parts together. From a state government perspective, we are only a facilitator. We are only here to bring those partnerships to come up and hopefully try and solve those practical solutions. And on behalf of my team, Penelope Lane and Andrew Weir in particular, who are leading the aspect of trying to build those partnerships, it's a great delight for us to be here, and I wish everyone who's participating in this pilot every success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cameron. We now have the fun part. Not to say that, Sarah and Cameron, yours wasn't. We now get to hear from one of the gentlemen that created Holly, and it would probably be useful at this point in time to highlight that right now we haven't actually explained what Holly is, and it sort of would help. So without further ado, allow me to introduce Professor Con Mousakis to hopefully explain what Holly does, how it works, and maybe where it came from as well. Thank you. All yours, Con.
Thank you, Ian, and thank you for taking most of my thunder. You know, I had all these notes written so I can throw these away and not say too much more. But good morning to everyone, and welcome. Of course, may I welcome the federal member for Corangamite. I got it right. Sarah Henderson, and the federal member for Corio, Richard Miles. Also, thank you to Cameron Broadman and Penelope Lane from the Victorian Department of Economic Development, Jobs, Transport and Resources. You know, it's a mouthful, but we get the message. Also, I'd like to welcome Professor Trevor Day, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Science, Engineering and Built Environment at Deakin University, Professor John Grundy, Pro-Vice Chancellor, ICT Innovation and Translation, and Professor John Yarwood, the Head of the School of Information Technology, all from Deakin University. Colleagues from the Deakin Software and Technology Innovation Lab, of course, at Deakin. Ian Aitken and his colleagues from Samsung Australia, and our friends from the City of Greater Geelong, who are making available this wonderful facility this morning to launch the Holly Smart Home. Finally, Mr. Andre Ferretto, who has believed in the Holly Smart Home vision and has allowed us to get to where we are today, running the 5 trials in 5 homes right here in Geelong. And thank you, Andre, for your ongoing support, because without it, nothing was going to happen. So I've been asked to talk about how this all came about, and Ian is quite right. Raj and I were on a long flight from LA to Melbourne, and on those long flights where you get on the plane at some time at 10 o'clock at night or something like that, you don't get to sleep. So we pulled out a piece of paper and we started scribbling things on this piece of paper, and I said, what we saw in San Francisco, you need to be a propeller head to be able to make ends meet with all those things. So let's make sure that we can build something that is simple. And I went back to thinking about how my dear mother, after my father passed away, how would she cope if I gave her something that she had to wear around her neck, and if there was any problem, she'd have to press this button, but if she fell over, she wouldn't be able to press the button, and it just went on and on and on. So I said, we need to think about things like a smoke detector. Thank you, Ian. He uses all my words. We need to think about things as a smoke detector, the Holly Smart world, and it just sits there, does its business, and only when there is an issue will it go off. And that was the underlying premise. So when we started pulling all this together, and of course reiterating and explaining the vision to our software engineering team, that was the premise. Now, Holly, we think of Holly as being there, it's doing its business, and only when there's a problem, it'll send a message. And of course, we have a host of sensors that we can put around the home. No one has to wear anything around themselves. They don't have to carry anything. We'll know where people are or individuals are in their home. And we have a few little smart things that run on a very small computer, even smaller than the size of a mobile phone, where we can run some algorithms and learn about what the people in the home are doing. And that's the underlying premise. Of course, this whole thing wouldn't come about without having some support from Samsung. And as you can imagine, we have sensors, and if you open a door or close a door, it'll pick it up. If you walk in a particular room, it'll pick it up. If the temperature in the room starts to get a bit high, you pick it up. And that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure we could pick up, because I have all these arguments with my mother, especially on days like yesterday, and obviously the next couple of days where the temperature will rise, and I'll make a phone call and say, how are you going today? And she'll say, and this is all in Greek, by the way. She won't speak a word of English. Oh, yeah, I'm okay. She said, a bit of a headache. I said, how much water have you drunk today? Oh, I don't need to drink any water. I said, what do you mean you don't need to drink any water? Oh, I don't feel like drinking any water. It's fine. Have you got the air conditioning on? Oh, no, it's not hot. And it's 30 degrees in the house. So we want to be able to make sure that we can pick all these things up and inform those who are in the home that it might be appropriate that they turn the air conditioning on. Or if it was me, I'll turn it on for her. And she won't have any excuse to say, I'm going to go and turn it off, because she won't be able to reach the switch, hopefully. So these are certain things that we'd like to do, making sure that they take their medication, because sometimes my mother will forget, and what did you do this morning? I had to go out and water the garden, and so on and so forth. I said, she only takes 2 pills, one for osteoporosis and one for her blood pressure. And yeah, I think I've done that. I said, oh, you think? So we've got to put them out on the bench every night and make sure she does that as well. So these are certain things that we would like to inform the elderly, just to remind them about certain things that they need to be doing. One of the other things that we have noticed in the last few weeks is this notion of home security, and knowing if making sure that anyone in the home is safe. And we've seen some press about some things that have gone on. And I'd like to know if someone is actually attempting to get into mum's home or whatever. And by doing so, that will create an anomaly. And Holly is all about looking at anomalies. What is it that is not working correctly? And the underlying algorithms that Raj and the team have put together to make sure that these anomalies are picked up. We learn from the activity during the days, not just one day, but over a month, 2 months, 3 months, and hence why we also need to run these trials. The reason behind running these trials is to learn some of the things that we cannot mimic in a laboratory. And as much as I would like to say that everything was working fine in the laboratory, and when we put it into the 5 homes, it's working perfectly, I should say that there's been a few hiccups. Things didn't work. Our friends at Telstra decided to do a reset on their 4G network, which obviously caused some problems for us. But these are things that we need to learn, and the trial is all about learning where we need to make changes. And thankfully, we've got some very understanding people who are helping us and highlighting where we might need to make those changes, and we will document those and go back and make those changes. It will improve the day-to-day activity of our elderly community. Quite rightly, if we can keep our elderly in their own home, and my mother is one of those who just won't leave. She's on a quarter of an acre. I've got to sit there and go and cut grass every 3 weeks. And how about you? No, that's your job, Con. You go and do that. Get on with it. Go and cut the grass. How about we get some? No, we're not getting someone else to do it. You're going to do it. So I've just got to go put the overalls on and cut the grass. She will not leave the home because that's what they feel comfortable in. And so my mission was to make a difference where we can use technology that will make a difference for my mother and my aunt, Raj's mum and dad, and everyone else, because that I think is where is important. We want to make sure that everyday lives for our elderly in Australia are adequate, nice, and they're comfortable. There's a lot of potential for Holly. We have a number of things that we want to do, from hydration reminders through to medication reminders, through to turning on lights. We know that in the evening, late at night, if you need to get up, we know that only 7% luminosity is adequate enough for someone to go to the bathroom and then come back and not wake up because the light is too intense, through to having others involved in writing apps. And so we've built an architecture that will allow people to write their own apps that they may come up with. So there's a whole industry that will be created, and I'm sure our friends both federally and state will like that as well. And of course we're going to train some of those people at Deakin to do that sort of work as well. We're trialling in 5 homes in Geelong. We're going to learn a lot. We are very thankful for the patience of the people that have these devices in their homes right now. And once we are able to collect the information we need to collect, of course the software engineers will make all the changes, we'll guide them, and we'll go for another trial with more homes just to scale up a bit. And that's where it'll be. And then potentially we have plans to go nationally and of course internationally, which where the market is, and it'll be a great export story if we can crack the US and send it back to the US and say, this is how it's done, folks, because we did it better than you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Con. Professor of Physics, and still he doesn't know the meaning of 5 minutes. Thank you, Con. If I may, I'd like to now invite Councillor Rod McDonald to the stage to give a few words from a City of Greater Geelong perspective. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Ian, and what a terrific day it is here in Geelong to be part of this new trial. I'd just like to acknowledge the Wadawurrung people, the traditional owners of this land, and all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of the Greater Geelong community today. I'd just like to also to acknowledge Sarah Henderson, member for Corangamite, Richard Miles, member for Corio, Samsung President Harry Lee, also head of Smart Things, Carolyn Dimish, Professor John Grundy, Andre Ferretto from SP Solutions. I'd also like to acknowledge Alison MacArthur, who's with us today, and Alison's one of the 5 homeowners, residents that are now going to have this smart technology. In fact, they do have that smart technology in their homes, and I think in our discussions around about 30 sensors, so we'll get to the nitty-gritty, but it's fantastic, Alison, you've chosen to be part of this, and the enthusiasm which you've taken it on board, because I think that should be well done. The work that you are doing as part of this development is really going to help a lot of others. So you're a pioneer in a great new world. And as I mentioned, I'm really thrilled that it is in Geelong. This is such an important thing. Back in May last year, the council adopted Digital Geelong, which was a strategy to take us into the 21st century and to utilise technology and to develop strategies to make us, I guess, great in the years ahead. And that had 3 parts to it. Firstly, there was internally. If we're going to get this right, council has to be one of those that do. Secondly, was the small business sector. That's one area that really needs a push along in digital space and digital technology. So we'll be working with peak organisations to help develop their strategies and to advocate to them on the benefits and demonstrate the benefits. And the third aspect, which is really critical, is digital inclusion. That's the broader community. And without it, all levels of government won't succeed in their aims to take more things online, get more services at improved costs. And so citizens have to be able to use the technology, and then we have to be looking at the technology to make their lives better. And this is a really great example of how digital inclusion is driving change within our society. And Geelong being the trial site is just a fantastic thing. And I'd just like to acknowledge Ashley Bland from Department of Innovation, firstly, who brought the project to me for some discussions. And then since that point, the discussions with Samsung around this and other issues, I think we're seeing some remarkable engagement opportunities coming up for Geelong, in addition to the Holly, which we're so thrilled about here today. It is a first of its kind, and so out of that we'll need to get some learnings. And I think we'll obviously be improving Holly as we go along, but I think there's also the opportunity to see other things, and that's what excites our council manager for digital and innovation, because there'll be lots of other new jobs and work coming out for him that will come out of this. The important thing from Holly is that it does provide that independence of living, and we've heard that sort of talked about today. So it's about ensuring safety and making sure people, if they need assistance, they get it. But it does importantly keep people in their homes where they're familiar, where they're comfortable, and where their friends are, and their social networks exist and grow. So it's really important to keep people in their homes, and this technology will be an important part of that. And as we know, we do have an ageing population in Australia, so it's important that we have a system which can be scaled up, and certainly Holly and others are really very much scalable technologies that as we improve, we can add more sensors, more programs, more apps, as was mentioned, so we can grow the system and meet the demands of the future. But it's not only in Geelong, this will go internationally. So something that starts here in Geelong as a small trial will eventually end up around the world, and we know that will be the case. So, as I said, fits within the strategies of Council. We've been really pleased to embrace the opportunity to work with Samsung, Deakin University, critical link with the industry, and we know that in Australia we're probably around about 6 from the bottom of OECD countries who have engagement with business, industry and universities. I'm really pleased to say that in Geelong we're actually kicking a few goals now, and we'll bit by bit lift Geelong up and add to the value that Australia has with their universities. So I'm really pleased that we can work with Deakin. So thank you, Deakin, for I guess unequivocally just saying we're in, like all the partners did. And just finally, to close, I'd just like to acknowledge our community development staff who, I guess in council, have been at the forefront of some of the developments that we've done around teaching technology and going out into the suburbs. Along with our free Wi-Fi, they've been showing residents how to use technology. And so they get this, and I'm really pleased to say that when they heard about this opportunity, their hands went flying up as well. So some great people involved, and we'll take this bigger and better. So again, Deakin, Cisco, State Government, thank you very much for choosing Geelong. I know we didn't give you much choice. We argued fairly strongly about coming here, but it is really a fantastic start, and I would hope that in a couple of years' time there'll be other opportunities for rolling out some new trials and, again, demonstrating Geelong's flexibility and capacity in advanced manufacturing and technology. So thank you, Ian and team, and thank you all for being here today sharing this wonderful event. Thank you.
So you'll be pleased to know we are close to closing. We have a couple of more formalities before we finish off today. We will be signing an MOU today. This is a reaffirmation of our relationship with Deakin University and SP Tech Solutions as we drive this forward. We have had an MOU done quite a few years ago now. We're now updating that so that it's a tripartite one with both Deakin University and SP Tech Solutions, so we can drive the investment, the research and development forward, so that we can ensure that that innovative aspect of the project can be continued. Just to reiterate, Holly is an intelligent system that lives in the home, for the home, to allow people to lead an independent life as they get a little bit older. It's as simple as that. It is non-invasive. We don't expect people to wear crazy wearables, put something around their neck. They don't have a button on the wall that they press that they can't get to when they fall over. It's a very simple technology which naturally fits within a lifestyle of somebody that may not be comfortable with technology. It is designed fundamentally to be intelligent. Now, that's a big word to use when it comes to technology, because technology has a tendency of making representations to say that it's smart, to say that it's clever, but in reality it doesn't deliver. In fact, an awful lot of technology that sits within the aged care setting today really does fail, unfortunately. Holly is an exception, and for the work that has been done to Holly so far, the homes that it's installed in today, we certainly hope that what we see will be seen as we go through the trial, and certainly, Alison, with your assistance in the trial, we're certainly looking forward to a successful outcome. The trial is a proper academic trial as well, so this is not just something that Samsung or SP Tech Solutions are driving from a pure commercial perspective. It's not. This is done through academic rigour, through a proper ethics committee process, and there will be a published paper at the end of this. So it will be scrutinised, it will be peer reviewed, and that information will be made available for others to look on and build on as we move into the future. And it needs to be, because this is groundbreaking technology. This is not something that we're just adding a little bit of new things onto. This is a groundbreaking piece of technology which is going to spearhead a whole new raft of industries and applications. As Professor Conn mentioned, this is an app store, but it's an app store not for your phone or tablet. It's an app store for your home. Your home needs to have these apps added to it to add extra value and function. Now, those functions could be a simple thing like a hydration reminder, a medication reminder, but we're also looking at things like fall detection, gait reminders. Are you walking okay? Or is there a slow degradation that may be a precursor to a fall that could happen later on? If we can gather that data, then hopefully we can intervene before something catastrophic happens. Now, this, from a financial standpoint, is obvious. I think it's straightforward. Sarah, you mentioned the $300,000 that it costs to transition, on average, a human being from an individual's home into a residential aged care facility. What we're looking at is being able to delay that further so that they can live an independent life within their home. Now, the cost to the family themselves, the cost to the siblings of that family, is enormous as well. It's not just a cost that is borne by the government, it's a cost that's borne by everyone. So that transition into a residential aged care facility is significant, apart from the emotional trauma that goes with it. What we're really aiming to do is provide people with peace of mind and the ability to live in the environment that they wish to live in, hopefully for the remainder of their days. Now, that is a vast departure from where we are today.